Our real estate guru, Kathy Helbig from the Kathy Helbig Group, is here. You, of course, see her on KSDK Channel 5. She's our girl, too. You can see her online, KathyHelbigGroup.com. And don't forget about the app. Download the app from iPhones or Android. How's the app going, Kathy Helbig?
App's going good.
Yeah. First of all, good to see you here in studio.
Thank you.
The app is great. Not only is it, you can see your listings, you can just sort of kick the tires and sort of get a sense of what the houses are. But you can also, I love the open house button.
Yeah.
So if you want to go look at open houses, just hit the button and you have a list of open houses.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We'll have more features coming soon.
Yeah. All right. You want to talk about setting the price for your house.
Right. There's a trifecta because when you're looking at pricing, we have to look at it from 3 different angles. So we have to look at it as what the seller feels their house is worth, when we're coming into an appointment, how the consumer is going to look at the house and feel that they think it's worth. And then the final is what is the appraiser going to think the house is worth? And if you can get all 3 of those to line up, that's the seller's trifecta.
Okay. How hard, but that's easier said than done, clearly.
Absolutely.
Because the seller thinks their house is worth a lot more.
Right.
And it's a tough conversation to have to say, look, I want you to get as much for this house as possible, but...
Right. A seller often values their house based on what they paid for it and what they put into it. Mm-hmm. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. The consumer sometimes can fall into that category too because they will value the hardwood floors and, the landscaping and the granite and things like that. So sometimes you can get 2 of them to line up. But the problem comes in then, let's say you find the buyer that falls in love with your house as much as you love it and is willing to give you what you want. The problem is if you don't have the data to back it up, then 3 weeks later, the appraiser waltzes in. He just pulls the rug right out from underneath everything because you got to realize that bank that is lending the money to that consumer has got to look at it as, all right, this consumer moves into this house. He stops paying me a year from now. I got to come take this house back. Where am I going to be?
Right.
So that's why they really have to have the data to support it so that they don't get themselves in the situation that we were in several years ago with everybody being upside down in houses.
I do not want to throw the appraisers under the bus.
Go ahead.
But I'm going to do it anyway.
However, with that caveat, let me do it. It seems like, though, it's amazing that the appraisers usually come in $1,000 or $2,000 more than what the buyer and the seller agreed to.
Okay, so here's the deal on that. The appraiser gets a copy of the contract, okay? They have a number in mind. If they can justify the number, it makes everyone's life a little easier. Not necessarily saying that they're not doing their job because they are. They have to have the data that supports that. But I don't know if part of it's why come in $10,000 higher and then the seller's freaked out because they think you sold the house for less. I've had that happen before. And honestly, the seller shouldn't even get a copy of the appraisal unless there is a problem with it. If it comes in undervalued, then the seller gets a copy. Otherwise, it's just better off that they don't.
And if it comes in undervalue, can that seller, like a doctor, get a second opinion, which sometimes they do?
It's harder to get an appraisal review than you think. So what happens is, when you go into a contract, you write an appraisal rider in that says the house has to appraise for the purchase price or else this. And there's several different options. So the buyer can opt to move forward, and a educated buyer sometimes does. They know that the market's not... The history isn't catching up with the market fast enough, and they've looked at all these houses and they realize there's nothing out there like this one. So they'll get it and they'll go, all right, I'll make up the difference, and they can choose to make up the difference and move forward and get their loan. Or they can go back to the seller and say, hey, the appraisal writer says you've got to reduce the price to match the appraised value. And then the seller has to make a decision at that point if they want to keep that contract together, if they have to reduce $1,000, $5,000, $10,000. They got to make up their mind right then and there, or the buyer gets their money back and they walk away.
How often does the appraisal come in less than the purchase price?
A few years ago, a lot.
Right.
Recently, not so much. We've had a couple that have happened lately, and a really good real estate agent needs to read through that appraisal because we had one that came in low. I read through it and I found a couple discrepancies and was able to challenge the appraisal, get it back through underwriting, and they adjusted the appraisal value and brought it up so everybody was happy.
It's also, we should say, it's also very hard to compare apples to apples on the same block in the same neighborhood.
Very hard, very hard. So what I do is I prepare comps ahead of time before the appraiser gets there, and make sure that we get a package in front of him so that he's looking at the things we want to make sure he doesn't miss, because it's all speculative. It's not an exact science pricing homes.
That's why you need Kathy Helbig.
That's right.
That's right.
KathyHelbigGroup.com, 314-276-SOLD. Co-owner of Keller Williams Realty West. You have a full team on your staff, correct?
Yes, I do.
Good guys, buyer's agents, seller's agents, marketing specialists,
Design consultants. We got it all.
consultants, staging consultants,
Yep.
and, of course, Kathy Helbig. And don't forget the app. Download the app, KathyHelbigGroup.com. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
All right, it's 7:44.